people go to Spain and see 2 cities, maybe 3. They think they've done it. They haven't even started. Spain is 17 regions, each one a completely different country in terms of food, language, landscape, and culture, and most of it sits entirely off the average tourist's radar. In this video, we're building the ultimate Spain bucket list, 60 experiences, all 15 mainland regions, from the most extraordinary Moorish palace on earth to a beach so beautiful, the Spanish government limits how many people can visit. Real prices, real insider tips, and a few things on this list that will genuinely change how you think about the country. Don't skip to the end, the best ones are scattered throughout. Andalusia. 1. Mosque-Cathedral of Córdoba. No building in Spain prepares you for the mezquita. It's a 9th century Islamic mosque. 856 red and white striped columns stretching in every direction like a stone forest, and right in the center of it, a Catholic Renaissance cathedral was built after the Reconquista. It shouldn't work. It absolutely does. The result is the finest example of Islamic architecture in the Western world, and one of the most extraordinary buildings you'll ever walk through. General admission is $20 US, 18.5 euro. From Monday to Saturday, 8:30 to 9:30 a.m., entry is completely free, but get there before the doors open. Insider tip. The free morning slot with near-empty columns is one of the great free experiences in Spain. Arrive 15 minutes before 8:30 a.m., go straight in, and you'll have the forest of columns in near silence for the first 20 minutes. It's a completely different place to the tourist-packed midday version. 2. The Alhambra and Granada. The Alhambra is not just the most visited monument in Spain, it genuinely might be the most beautiful building complex on Earth. The Nasrid palaces inside are the absolute pinnacle of Islamic art and architecture. Intricate stucco walls, geometric tile floors, ornamental pools reflecting the sky. Beyond the Alhambra, Granada itself is extraordinary. The Albaicin quarter has narrow cobblestone streets and whitewashed houses that have barely changed since the Moorish era, and the Mirador de San Nicolas gives you the most famous view of the Alhambra against the snow-capped Sierra Nevada. Tickets are $23 US, 21 euro, and sell out weeks in advance. Book the day your dates are confirmed, not when you arrive. Insider tip. Your Nasrid Palace's entry time is stamped on the ticket and non-negotiable. Miss it by even 5 minutes, and you're turned away without a refund. Set a phone alarm, leave early, and treat that time slot like a flight. 3. Real Alcázar of Seville. The oldest royal palace still in active use in Europe isn't in London or Paris, it's in Seville. The real Alcázar was built as a Moorish palace in the 10th century, then expanded by Christian kings who loved Islamic architecture so much they hired Moorish craftsmen to keep building it. The result is a palace that flows between Islamic, Gothic, Renaissance, and Baroque styles in a way that feels completely coherent, and the gardens behind the palace are spectacular in their own right. Game of Thrones filmed the Water Gardens of Dorne here. Tickets are $17 US, 15 euro, and advanced booking is essential. The walk-up queue is painful. Insider tip. Book the very first slot of the day. The palace is enormous and rewards slow movement. Arriving before the tour groups gives you the tiled courtyards and reflecting pools in silence that they were actually designed to be experienced in. 4. Plaza de España, Seville. Built for the 1929 Ibero-American Exposition and never surpassed, a sweeping semicircular plaza with a canal, bridges, and 48 alcoves, each representing a different Spanish province in hand-painted tile that's simultaneously monumental architecture and exquisite folk art. The scale of the thing stops you physically when you first see it. Star Wars fans will recognize it as Naboo from Attack of the Clones. Completely free, open all day, and best experienced at dawn before anyone else arrives. Insider tip. 7 a.m. on a clear morning puts you in a completely different place from the tourist-packed midday version. The low light catches the ceramic alcoves and the canal glitters, and you can walk the full arc with nobody in frame. Worth setting an early alarm for. 5. Puente Nuevo, Ronda. Ronda is the day trip from Malaga that renders all other day trips obsolete. The city is split by the El Tajo Gorge, a 120-meter vertical chasm cut through the rock, and the Puente Nuevo bridge spanning it took 42 years to build and still looks like it grew there naturally. Standing on the bridge and looking straight down into the gorge is one of those disorienting scale shifts that travel occasionally delivers. The old town's magnificent, the views from the gorge paths are better than from above, and the whole thing is achievable from a day trip from Malaga for around $15 €14 on a train each way. Insider tip. Walk down into the gorge on the Camino de los Molinos path and look up at the bridge from below. Most visitors never do this. It's the most spectacular perspective by far, and it's free. 6. Caminito del Rey. A wooden walkway bolted into sheer limestone cliffs, 100 meters above a turquoise river, running through one of the most dramatic gorges in Andalusia. Once considered the most beautiful path in the world, built for hydroelectric workers in the early 1900s and left to crumble while daredevils kept sneaking in anyway. Fully restored in 2015, it's now Spain's most spectacular hike. Self-guided entries $11 €10. Guided tours from Malaga with transport run $67 to $88 60 to €80. In 2026, there's a brand new 110-meter suspension bridge added to the route, the longest of its kind in Spain. Insider tip. This sells out weeks ahead in spring and summer. Check availability the moment you know your Malaga dates and book immediately. Waiting until you arrive is a reliable way to miss it entirely. 7. Cadiz. The oldest continuously inhabited city in Western Europe, founded by the Phoenicians in 1104 BC, and it's one of the most underrated in Spain. Cadiz sits on a narrow peninsula jutting into the Atlantic, which gives it a light and an energy completely unlike anywhere else in Andalusia. The seafront promenade is extraordinary, the old town is full of Baroque towers and hidden plazas, and the seafood is the best on the Atlantic coast. Come in late February for the Carnival, a 10-day celebration of street music and satire that's one of the most musically complex festivals in Europe. Free to explore, Carnival accommodation books out months in advance. Insider tip. The Torre Tavira, one of the old watchtowers built to spot incoming ships, has a camera obscura that projects a live image of the whole city onto a curved screen inside. A completely unexpected experience, and one of the best things in Cadiz. Entry is around $8 €7. 8. Vejer de la Frontera. Most people who visit Andalusia never make it to Vejer, which is exactly why you should. This whitewashed hilltop village above the Costa de la Luz has narrow, winding lanes up toward a medieval castle, views that take in the Atlantic and the mountains of North Africa, and the kind of accumulated, unself-conscious beauty that takes centuries to develop. It's the Andalusian White Village experience without the coach tour crowds of Ronda or Frigiliana. Completely free to wander, nearby Conil de la Frontera has some of the most beautiful Atlantic beaches in Spain, combined both in a single day. Aragon. 9. Albarracin. Albarracin has been voted the most beautiful small town in Spain more times than any other place, and spending an hour in its medieval streets makes that easy to understand. Built on a rocky outcrop with a loop of river on 3 sides, the whole town is in a distinctive rosy pink terracotta stone that changes color completely in different light. Inside the ancient walls, the streets are genuinely medieval in scale and layout. Narrow lanes, stone archways, flower-draped balconies, with a silence and beauty that makes most more famous Spanish towns feel busy by comparison. Free to wander. 10. Pyrenees National Park. The Spanish Pyrenees are one of Europe's great mountain destinations, and most visitors to Spain completely ignore them. The Ordesa y Monte Perdido National Park in Aragon is the dramatic centerpiece. Glacial lakes, canyon walls rising 1,500 meters, waterfalls cascading through ancient beech forest, and a network of hiking trails ranging from easy valley walks to multi-day high-altitude routes. The wildlife here, ibex, lammergeier vultures, golden eagles, is extraordinary. Access and day use of the park is free. Guided hiking tours and mountain gear rental run $40 to $80, 36 to 73 euro, depending on the activity. Insider tip: the Ordesa Valley in October is one of the most beautiful landscapes in Spain. The beech forests turn gold and copper, the crowds are gone, and the light is spectacular. Book accommodation in Torla Ordesa village well in advance, even for autumn. 11. Lake Mediano, kayaking a sunken village. This is one of those experiences that sounds made up and turns out to be completely real. In the Aragonese Pyrenees, Lake Mediano was created in 1971 when a dam was built in the Cinca River, submerging the village of Mediano, population 150. On clear days, the church tower still rises above the waterline. You can kayak out to it, circle the tower, and look down through water at the rooftops and streets of a village that's been underwater for over 50 years. It's eerie, beautiful, and unlike anything else in Spain. Guided kayaking tours run around $35 to $45, 32 to 41 euro. Insider tip: the church tower is most visible when the reservoir is at lower water levels, typically late summer and autumn. Check current water levels before booking if seeing the tower clearly is important to you. Asturias. 12. Covadonga Sanctuary and Lakes. High in the Picos de Europa, above the sanctuary town of Covadonga, the road climbs through waterfalls, ancient beech forest, and absurdly green hillsides until it opens onto two glacial lakes, Enol and Ercina, sitting at over 1,000 meters with mountain peaks reflected in the still water. It looks more like Ireland than anywhere you'd expect in Spain. Below, the Covadonga Basilica itself is extraordinary. A pink Romanesque church built directly into a cliff face above a river, with a cave containing a beloved statue of the Virgin that draws pilgrims from across Spain. Free access to both, shuttle bus from Covadonga runs in summer months. Insider tip: the fountain at the Covadonga Sanctuary, known locally as the Fuente del Matrimonio, is said to guarantee marriage within a year to anyone who drinks from it. Whether you're in the market or not, it's worth the walk up to the cave chapel above the waterfall. 13. Caves of Tito Bustillo. For Paleolithic cave art, Spain has no equal in the world, and the Tito Bustillo caves outside Ribadesella contain paintings that rival the famous Altamira in quality and surpass it in diversity. Horses, deer, reindeer, whales, and dolphins painted 22,000 to 10,000 years ago on cave walls with a naturalistic skill that continues to astonish archaeologists. Daily visitor numbers are strictly capped to protect the art. This sells out completely in summer, and you need to book well ahead. Entry is around $9, 8 euro, and after the cave, walk the Ribadesella Harbor, one of the most beautiful in Asturias. 14. Cider Taverns, Asturian Cideras. Asturias runs on cider. Not just any cider, Sidra Natural, poured in a very specific Asturian way. The bottle held high above the head, the glass down at hip level, the stream of cider falling half a meter and breaking into foam against the glass, then drunk immediately before it goes flat. It's a whole ritual and culture, and the cideras, cider taverns, where this happens, are some of the most enjoyable places to eat and drink in northern Spain. Pair with fadaba asturiana, the local bean stew, or cachopo, a breaded veal cutlet the size of your forearm. Budget around $20 to $35, 18 to 32 euro per person for a full dinner with cider. Insider tip: The Calle Gascona in Oviedo, known locally as the Boulevard of Cider, has a dozen siderias side by side and is the best single street in Spain for this experience. Go on a Thursday or Friday evening when it's buzzing with locals. 15. Lastres Llanes. The coast of eastern Asturias is one of the most scenically beautiful in Spain, and Lastres and Llanes are the two villages that capture it best. Lastres clings to a hillside above the sea, its pastel-colored houses cascading down to a small fishing harbor with the Picos de Europa visible in the background on clear days. Llanes, 40 minutes east, has a beautifully preserved medieval old town, a picturesque harbor, and a series of coves and beaches, including the famous Bufones de Playa blowholes, where the Atlantic forces jets of seawater high through holes in the coastal rock. Both are free to explore. Basque Country. 16. San Sebastian Pintxo Tour. San Sebastian has more Michelin stars per square kilometer than any city in the world except Tokyo, and even a casual evening of pintxo hopping in the Parte Vieja puts you in contact with food at a level that most European cities can't touch. Pintxo are the Basque answers to tapas, bite-sized preparations on bread, often built with fine dining techniques and unexpected combinations. Bar Nestor is legendary for its tortilla, served at exactly one sitting each evening. A Bordaberi and La Cuchara de San Telmo are where the creative edge lives. Budget around $25 to $45, 23 to 41 euro for a full pinto crawl with wine or chocolat. Insider tip. The Pintxo bars refresh their spreads between 7 and 8 a.m. Arrive early in that window for the freshest options. The bars near the back of the old town near the market are consistently better than the tourist-facing spots on the main streets. 17. Guggenheim Bilbao. When the Guggenheim Bilbao opened in 1997, it was so radical. Titanium curves, warped geometry, a building that seemed to move as you walked around it, that academic papers were written about whether a single building could regenerate an entire city. Bilbao's answer is yes. The art inside is world-class and rotating, but the building's the thing. The way it catches the light, reflects in the river, and surprises at every angle is endlessly fascinating. General admission is around $18, 16 euro. Jeff Koons' enormous floral puppy sculpture outside is free, and one of the most joyful public artworks in Europe. Insider tip. Walk the full exterior before going inside. The building rewards a complete circuit that most visitors skip to rush to the entrance. The riverfront view from the La Salve Bridge is the classic angle, but the back of the building is where the architecture gets most surprising and least photographed. 18. Gaztelugatxe. There are places in Spain that look like they were designed as a backdrop for mythology, and Gaztelugatxe is one of them. A tiny rocky islet off the Basque coast, connected to the mainland by a causeway with 231 zigzagging stone steps leading to a small hermitage at the top. The views over the Bay of Biscay are extraordinary, and the whole structure has an ancient, sea-scoured quality that makes it feel genuinely timeless. Game of Thrones viewers will recognize it immediately as Dragonstone. Access is timed and capped. Book your slot online at least a week ahead in summer, free to visit. Insider tip. Ring the bell 3 times at the top and make a wish. That's the local tradition. Allow 45 minutes for the climb up and back. The steps can be slippery in wet weather, so wear shoes with grip. 19. Surfing at Zuriola Beach, San Sebastian. Zuriola Beach in San Sebastian is one of the best urban surf breaks in Europe. A consistent Atlantic swell, a wide sandy beach right in the city, and a surf culture that draws competitors from across the continent every summer. Whether you want to learn, surf schools run all season from around $55, 50 euro for a lesson with a board and wetsuit, or just watch the champion-level surfing from the promenade. The energy here is completely different from the elegant resort beaches on the other side of the headland. The contrast between Zuriola's surf beach vibe and La Concha's old world promenade, separated by 5-minute walk, perfectly captures San Sebastian's dual personality. Cantabria. 20. Potes and Picos de Europa. The Picos de Europa is the mountain range that most Spanish visitors never discover, and it's genuinely one of the most dramatic landscapes in Europe. Jagged limestone peaks over 2,600 meters, deep glacial gorges, medieval monasteries and mountain valleys, and the Fuente de cable car that takes you from the valley floor to 1,823 meters in exactly 4 minutes. The village of Potes at the entrance to the mountains is a perfect medieval mountain town. Stone bridges over a rushing river, ancient towers, local cheese shops, and the Picos rising theatrically behind everything. The cable car runs around $13, 12 euro return. The mountains are free. Insider tip. Ride the cable car up and walk the high plateau for an hour before coming back down. The view from the top is one of the most extraordinary in northern Spain and completely different from the sunny Mediterranean Spain most visitors experience. In autumn, the valley beech forests below turn spectacular colors. 21. Capricho de Gaudí, comillas. Most people don't know that Gaudí built anything outside Catalonia. He built 3 things, and one of them sits in the small Cantabrian town of Comillas, 2 hours west of Bilbao. El Capricho de Gaudí is a summer villa built in 1885, covered in sunflower ceramic tiles, topped by a minaret-style tower with wrought iron details and that sense of organic natural forms becoming architecture that defines all his later work. It's one of his earliest major buildings and genuinely fascinating for understanding where the Sagrada Familia and Casa Batlló came from. Entry costs around $7, 6 euro. 22. El Soplao Cave. El Soplao has been called the Sistine Chapel of Spanish caves, and standing inside the main chamber, it's hard to argue. The geological formations here, helictites, stalagmites, stalactites, are among the most spectacular in Europe, and some of the cave formations defy explanation. Crystals growing sideways, upwards, and in spiral curls that seem to ignore gravity entirely. The guided tour takes you through chambers of extraordinary scale and detail. Tours run around $13, 12 euro for the standard visit, with a more adventurous speleology option available for experienced cave explorers. Insider tip. Book the tourist tour rather than the adventure option unless you're experienced with caving. The standard tour covers the most spectacular sections and is accessible to everyone. Go on a weekday to avoid the weekend school groups. Castilla-La Mancha. 23. Windmills of Consuegra. This is the most Don Quixote thing you can do in Spain, and it earns its place on this list for that alone. On the ridge above the town of Consuegra, 12 traditional windmills stand against the sky with a 10th century Moorish castle behind them, exactly as Cervantes imagined his knight-errant encountering them in the 17th century. The La Mancha plain stretches to the horizon in every direction, and the combination of the white windmills, the castle, and the vast open landscape is one of the most quintessentially Spanish views you'll find anywhere in the country. Free to walk the ridge, small fee for windmill interiors. 24. Cuenca hanging houses. The Casas Colgadas of Cuenca are perched on the edge of a vertical cliff over the Huecar Gorge, with their wooden balconies literally hanging over the void below. Built in the 15th century and miraculously still standing, they've been converted into a museum of abstract art, whose setting is more dramatic than anything inside of it. The medieval city itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, perched on a rock between 2 gorges, with a Gothic cathedral, medieval streets, and views that look straight down into the canyon at every turn. Abstract Art Museum entry is around $4, 3 euro, and the city and gorge views are free. Insider tip. The footbridge, Puente de San Pablo, spanning the gorge opposite the hanging houses, is the most famous viewpoint, but walk it in both directions and take your time with the perspective. The houses look even more impossible from below on the gorge path. 25. Toledo. If you're building a Spain bucket list and Toledo isn't in it, start over. This medieval walled city sits on a granite hill above the Tagus River, and for centuries it was the meeting point of Christian, Muslim, and Jewish civilizations. The architecture reflects all three in extraordinary ways. El Greco lived here for most of his working life and painted the city's churches and works that have never left. 13th century cathedral is one of Europe's great Gothic cathedrals, and the Mirador del Valle across the river at sunset, with the entire medieval skyline reflected in the water below, is one of the defining views of Spain. Old Town free to walk, cathedral entry around $11, €10. Insider tip. Stay overnight. Toledo is overwhelmed by day trippers from Madrid, and by 6 p.m. most of them leave. The city in the evening, when the streets are empty, the lights come on, and the cathedral glows, is a completely different, far more atmospheric place, worth every penny of the hotel. 26. Serranía de Cuenca Natural Park. Most visitors to Cuenca see the city and leave. The Serranía de Cuenca Natural Park in the hills nearby rewards the ones who stay. The headline attraction is the Enchanted City, Ciudad Encantada, an area where millions of years of erosion have carved the limestone into a landscape of mushroom-shaped rocks, arches, balanced boulders, and formations named for what they resemble: the seal, the faces, the lovers. Walking through it feels like a natural sculpture park on a geological scale. Entry costs around $5, €4.50. Elsewhere in the park, the source of the Cuervo River tumbles through mossy limestone terraces in one of the most beautiful waterfall sequences in Spain. Castilla y León. 27. Segovia and Hot Air Balloon. Segovia makes a strong argument for being the most beautiful day trip from Madrid. The Roman aqueduct running through the city center is one of the best preserved Roman engineering works in the world. 2,000 years old, 28 meters high, and held together without a single drop of mortar. At the opposite end of the old town, the Alcázar castle looks like it was borrowed from a fairy tale. Between the two, the old town is full of Romanesque churches and restaurants serving legendary cochinillo asado. Aqueduct and Old Town are free. Alcázar entries around $9, €8. A hot air balloon over the aqueduct at dawn, with champagne and breakfast included, run around $165, €150, and is one of the most memorable experiences in Castile. Insider tip. Book the balloon 6 to 8 weeks ahead in spring and summer. Morning slots are limited and sell out. Clear days in April, May, and October give the best visibility over the Meseta Plateau surrounding the city. 28. Avila's Medieval Walls. Avila has the best preserved medieval city walls in Europe. The complete circuit, walls, towers, and gateways encircling the entire old city has been standing since the 11th century, and you can walk along the top of a significant section, looking out over the Castilian plain in one direction and into the medieval streets below in the other. The Cathedral of Avila is embedded directly into the defensive wall and serves as one of its towers, a complete fusion of sacred and military architecture found nowhere else. Wall walk entry costs around $6, €5. 29. Cathedral of León. León's cathedral is one of the most beautiful Gothic cathedrals in Spain, and the case rests almost entirely on the glass. 1,800 square meters of stained glass windows transform the interior into a shifting, colored light show that changes completely as the sun moves around the building. When the late morning light comes through the western rose window, the effect is so overwhelming that the cathedral has been called the House of Light for centuries. It earns the name completely. Entry costs around $7, €6. The Basilica de San Isidoro nearby has Romanesque frescoes so complete and detailed that UNESCO called it the Sistine Chapel of Romanesque art. Free to enter the church, small fee for the Royal Pantheon. Insider tip. Visit the cathedral on a sunny morning when the eastern windows are catching full light, and then walk directly to San Isidoro. Both are in the old city center within 5 minutes of each other, and together they make one of the best cultural mornings in northern Spain. 30. Salamanca. Salamanca is Spain's great university city, home to one of the oldest universities in the world, founded in 1218, and that history has given it an energy and intellectual warmth that most Spanish cities of its size don't have. The old town is built almost entirely of golden sandstone that turns deep amber in the evening light, and the Plaza Mayor is one of the finest Baroque squares on the continent, still functioning as a genuine social heart of the city, full of students, locals, and the occasional tourist who can't believe nobody's cordoned it off. Find the frog carved on a skull on the university facade. Spot it, and good luck is supposedly yours for a year. Insider tip. Best light in Salamanca hits a 6 to 7 p.m. in summer when the sandstone goes amber gold. The Plaza Mayor and university facade at this hour are genuinely spectacular. Cathedral entries around $7, €6. Plaza Mayor and university exterior are free. 31. Casa de Botines, León. Almost no one knows that Gaudí built a neo-Gothic palace in León. Casa de Botines was completed in 1892, over a decade before Sagrada Familia was in full swing, and it has all his hallmarks. Angular towers that give it the appearance of a medieval castle, surprising modernist details in the iron railings and stonework, and a buried secret that was only discovered during restoration. A rolled-up Gaudí drawing hidden inside the statue above the front door, exactly where he said it would be. Today, it's a museum dedicated to Gaudí's work. Entries around $7, €6. Catalonia. 32. Bunkers del Carmel, Barcelona. Most visitors go to Park Güell for Barcelona's best view. Locals go to Bunkers del Carmel. These abandoned Spanish Civil War anti-aircraft batteries sit on the highest accessible point in the city with a complete 360-degree panorama. The entire Barcelona skyline, the sea, the mountains, and on a clear day, the outline of Mallorca in the distance. No ticket, no opening times, no elevator, just a 20-minute walk up from the metro and one of the most spectacular free views in Spain. On summer evenings, the whole hilltop fills with locals watching the sunset with a cold beer, turning it into one of the best social scenes in the city, completely free. Insider tip. Arrive 30 to 40 minutes before sunset and find a spot on the curved brick walls of the old gun batteries. Bring something to drink, watch the city light up below you. It's one of those travel moments that costs nothing and stays with you permanently. 33. Park Güell and Gaudí's Barcelona. Gaudí's Barcelona is an argument in architecture that buildings can be organic, joyful, alive, and the best way to experience it is across multiple sites in sequence. Park Güell is the most accessible, the mosaic dragon staircase, the sweeping terrace, the columns that look like a stone forest, the views over the city. Casa Batlló is the most viscerally extraordinary interior. Sagrada Familia is the most ambitious thing any architect has attempted in the last 200 years. Park Güell Monumental Zone is $20, €18. Casa Batlló from $38 €35. Sagrada Familia, $29, €26. Book all three online well in advance. None has walk-up tickets. Insider tip. For Park Güell, the 9:30 a.m. slot is the one to book. The crowd difference between that and midday is extraordinary. For Sagrada Familia, go on a sunny day between late morning and early afternoon when the stained glass inside is at its most spectacular. 34. Cadaqués. Salvador Dali called Cadaqués the most beautiful bay in the world. This whitewashed fishing village on the Costa Brava is the furthest point on the coast before the road runs out, which kept it isolated long enough that it retained its character while the rest of the coast was developed. Artists have been drawn here for a century: Dali, Picasso, Coco Chanel, Marcel Duchamp. The Dali House Museum at nearby Cap de Creus, where he lived and worked for decades, is one of the most fascinating artist spaces in Europe. Free to wander the village, Dali Museum around $16, €14.50. Insider tip. Avoid July and August when Cadaqués fills completely and loses most of its magic. May, June, September, and October give you the village in a state that resembles what the artists actually found here. Quiet, light-filled, genuinely beautiful. 35. Montserrat. The Benedictine monastery of Montserrat sits on an improbable mountain. Jagged limestone pillars rising vertically from the forest below, the monastery buildings built directly into the cliff faces between them, 725 meters above the valley. The Black Madonna inside the basilica draws pilgrims from across the Catholic world. The hiking trails above lead to viewpoints so extraordinary that the mountain has been a place of spiritual significance since pre-Roman times. The rack railway or cable car from the valley costs around $18, 16 euro return. The monastery, basilica, and trails are free. Insider tip. Most visitors go up, see the Black Madonna queue, visit the museum, and come back down. Make time for the San Juan Trail above the monastery. A 45-minute climb to a hermitage and viewpoint with one of the widest panoramas in Catalonia, with almost nobody else up there. 36. Roman ruins of Tarragona. Tarragona was Augusta Emerita, one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire, established in 218 BC, and at its peak a city of 30,000 people. What's left is extraordinary: a well-preserved amphitheater overlooking the sea where gladiators fought, a complete Roman circus beneath the medieval city, a triumphal arch on the road to Barcelona still standing on its original foundations, and an aqueduct in the surrounding hills that rival anything in Segovia. The UNESCO-listed archaeological ensemble can fill an entire day. Individual site entries run $4 to $7, $3.5 to €6. A combined pass covers all sites for around $14, 13 euro. Extremadura. 37. Merida Roman Theater. Merida was Augustus's showcase city in the Iberian Peninsula, founded in 25 BC and at its height one of Rome's most important western outposts. The Roman theater here was built in 16 to 15 BC and is still used every summer for the Classical Theater Festival, meaning you can watch plays performed in a Roman theater under the original stage backdrop, with 2,000 years of history built into the columns around you. The archaeological complex also includes an amphitheater, circus, temples, triumphal arch, and Roman bridge. Combined ticket is around $17, 15 euro, and attending a performance during the festival runs from $20 to $40, 18 to 36 euro, and is one of the most unique cultural experiences in Spain. Insider tip. The Classical Theater Festival runs June and July. Book performances months ahead. They sell out, and attending a show in this specific building is one of those moments where history stops being abstract and becomes completely physical. 38. Trujillo. Trujillo is medieval Spain preserved almost untouched, a town on a granite hill topped by a Moorish castle, where the grand palaces lining the Plaza Mayor were all funded by conquistadors who returned from the Americas in the 16th century. Francisco Pizarro, the conqueror of Peru, was born here, and his bronze equestrian statue dominates the square. The whole town feels like it's been under the care of someone who understood exactly what it was and refused to let it change. Free to walk, castle entries around $2, 1.5 euro. 39. Royal Monastery of Guadalupe. The Royal Monastery of Guadalupe is one of the most important pilgrimage sites in the Spanish-speaking world. A Gothic mudahar building of extraordinary complexity, it supposedly stands on the site where a shepherd found a buried statue of the Virgin Mary in the 14th century. The ornate Gothic cloister, the sacristy with its series of Thubaran paintings, and the richly decorated Camarin chamber housing the Black Madonna are all genuinely spectacular. Spending the night in the Parador de Guadalupe, a 15th century building next to the monastery, is one of the great accommodation experiences in Spain. Monastery tours around $4, 3.5 euro. Galicia. 40. Cíes Islands. Access to Cíes Islands is limited by permit, and that's the only reason they look the way they do. These 3 uninhabited islands off the Galician coast are part of the Atlantic Islands National Park. White sand beaches with water so clear and blue, it looks Mediterranean, backed by green hills full of seabirds with no hotels, no cars, no development of any kind. The snorkeling is extraordinary. The beaches are as good as anywhere in Spain, and the combination of that Atlantic light with that watercolor makes for photographs that look invented. Ferry and permits run around $22 €20 return. Book both simultaneously. Permit numbers are capped and summer fills fast. Insider tip. Book the permit and ferry in the same session. One without the other's useless. Summer permits open months ahead and fill completely. If you're going in July or August, sort this in April. 41. Santiago de Compostela. Whether or not you walk the Camino to get there, Santiago de Compostela is one of the most moving cities in Spain. The cathedral marks the end of the 790-kilometer pilgrimage route from the French border, and the Plaza del Obradorio, the vast square in front of the Romanesque facade, is one of those places where the scale and the meaning of a space combine to produce something genuinely affecting. The old town surrounding it's entirely pedestrianized, full of covered granite arcades and medieval streets. During special masses, the botafumerio, a 53-kilogram incense burner, is swung across cables across the full width of the cathedral, transept in one of the most dramatic liturgical spectacles in Europe. Free to enter the cathedral and Old Town. 42. Cathedrals Beach. Praia das Catedrais doesn't look real in photographs and looks less real in person. At low tide, the sea retreats to reveal enormous rock arches and sea caves carved by the Atlantic over millions of years, some rising 30 meters from the sand, creating natural cathedrals of rock that you walk under, through, and around. The scale is physically disorienting. Access between June and September requires a free online permit, visitor numbers are capped, outside peak season if you want to walk straight in. Completely free. Insider tip. The arches are only fully accessible within roughly 2 hours either side of low tide. Check the tide tables for your visit date and plan your arrival around them. At high tide, most of the formation's underwater. Wear shoes with grip as the rocks are uneven. 43. Cape Finisterre. The Romans believed Cape Finisterre was the westernmost point of the known world, the place where the land ended and the unknown ocean began. Standing in the headland today with the Atlantic stretching to the horizon on 3 directions, it's easy to understand why. For pilgrims, finishing the Camino de Santiago, Finisterre is the traditional final destination after Santiago. And watching a sunset here, at what feels like the edge of everything, is one of those experiences that travel occasionally delivers, and ordinary life rarely does. Free to visit and walk. Insider tip. The lighthouse at the very tip of the cape has a bar. Have a drink there watching the sun go down over the Atlantic at the end of the world. If you've walked any part of the Camino to get here, this moment will stay with you for the rest of your life. 44. Tower of Hercules and Lugo's Roman walls. 2 UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Galicia that most tourists miss entirely. The Tower of Hercules in La Coruna is the oldest working lighthouse in the world. Built by the Romans in the 2nd century AD and still operational, with a dramatic position on a headland above the Atlantic, and a museum inside documenting 1900 years of continuous use. Entries around $4, €3. In Lugo, 90 minutes south, the complete Roman walls encircling the entire Old City date back to the 3rd century AD, and are the only intact Roman walls in the world. You can walk the full 2.1-kilometer circuit on top of them. Free to walk. La Rioja. 45. Vivanco Winery and Museum. The Vivanco Museum of Wine Culture in Briones is one of the most extraordinary single-building experiences in Spain, and almost nobody outside the wine world knows it exists. The museum holds the world's largest collection of wine-related objects, 220,000 pieces spanning 9,000 years of human relationships with wine. Ancient Greek amphoras, medieval tapestries, Picasso ceramics, contemporary art, and a garden of 220 vine varieties planted in rows. Then you taste. Entry with tasting runs around 18 to 25 US dollars, 16 to 23 euro. Guided winery tours of the full Vivanco estate go deeper and are worth the extra cost. Insider tip: combine the museum with a wine tour of the surrounding Hado area. This village is the historic center of Rioja Alta production, and within a few kilometers you have some of the most celebrated wineries in Spain. CVNE, Lopez de Heredia, and La Rioja Alta, all offering tasting and tours. 46. Batalla del Vino, Hado. Every June 29th in the Rioja village of Hado, thousands of people gather on the hillside and spend an hour absolutely drenching each other in red wine. The Batalla del Vino wine battle uses thousands of liters of local Rioja deployed via buckets, water pistols, wineskins, and anything else that holds liquid. By the end, everyone is stained dark red from head to toe, grinning like children, and the party continues all day in the town below. It's completely free to participate, thoroughly chaotic, and one of the most joyfully absurd festivals in Spain. Wear white, the contrast is everything. Insider tip: book your accommodation in Hado or nearby Logroño months in advance. The whole region fills for this date. Getting there early morning is worth it to see the procession through the streets before the battle begins. 47. Logroño Rioja Harvest Festival. Every September, Logroño throws a week-long wine harvest festival, Fiestas de San Mateo, with grapefoot crushing, harvest floats, food stalls, live music, and the ceremonious blessing of a new vintage that marks the start of another Rioja wine year. The streets fill with people carrying wine glasses, and the atmosphere is warm, celebratory, and very Spanish in the best sense. Calle Laurel, Logroño's famous pintxos street, runs at full capacity all week. Most events are free. The formal grape treading ceremony is ticketed at around 10 US dollars, 9 euro. Madrid region. 48. The Prado Museum. The Prado is not just a museum, it's an argument about what painting can do. Velázquez's Las Meninas is one of the most debated and analyzed paintings in history, and standing in front of it for the first time is unlike any art experience you've prepared for yourself. Goya's black paintings are some of the most disturbing and profound works ever made. El Greco's elongated saints seem to vibrate with spiritual intensity. The collection, one of the greatest concentrations of European masterworks ever assembled, fills a neoclassical building that is itself extraordinary. General admission is 20 US dollars, 18 euro, free entry Monday to Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m., and Sundays, 5 to 7 p.m. Insider tip: the Prado is too large to absorb in one visit. Choose your 10 paintings before you arrive, download the official app, and go straight to those 10 and give each one real time. Las Meninas is in room 12. Give it 20 minutes minimum. 49. Royal Palace of Madrid. The Royal Palace of Madrid is the largest royal palace in Western Europe, larger than Versailles, with 3,418 rooms, gilded ceilings, crystal chandeliers, a throne room with frescoes by Tiepolo, and a royal armory with one of the finest collections of historic armor anywhere in the world. The Spanish royal family no longer lives here, they moved to a smaller palace, but the scale and opulence of the staterooms is genuinely staggering. Standard self-guided entry is 20 US dollars, 18 euro. The changing of the guard on the first Wednesday of each month is free to watch from the outside. 50. Flamenco at Torres Bermejas. Madrid has some of the finest flamenco in Spain. The tablaos here draw performers from across Andalusia and maintain a standard that the tourist-oriented shows elsewhere can't touch. Torres Bermejas in the heart of the city is one of the historical venues. It opened in 1960 and has hosted generations of the most celebrated flamenco artists in Spain. The combination of guitar, the cante hondo, and the percussion in a small candlelit room is visceral in a way that nothing on a screen prepares you for. Shows start from around 42 US dollars, 38 euro, with some dinner options running higher. Insider tip: sit as close to the stage as possible. flamenco is a physical art form and proximity is the whole point. Feeling the stamps through the floor and seeing the facial expressions of the dancers up close is what makes it actually move you. 51. El Rostro Flea Market. Every Sunday morning, the streets of La Latina neighborhood fill with one of Europe's great flea markets. El Rostro has been running since the 15th century. Over 3,500 stalls, dozens of streets, vintage clothing, vinyl records, antiques, ceramics, old coins, leather goods, and about 10,000 other things. The atmosphere's the draw as much as the shopping. The noise, the negotiating, the collision of people from every part of the city, all moving in the same direction through the narrow streets. Completely free to browse. Go by 10 a.m. and leave by noon before the crowds become exhausting. Insider tip. The main strip of Ribera de Curtidores is big for crowds and elevated prices. The interesting finds and better deals are in the quieter side streets branching off the main drag. That's where the real market lives. Murcia. 52. Floración de Cieza. Every February and March, the Cieza Valley in Murcia transforms into one of the most spectacular natural flowering events in Spain. Peach and plum orchards blossom simultaneously across 4,000 hectares, turning the entire valley white and pink in a landscape that looks like it's been dusted with scented snow. It's well known within Spain, but barely on an international tourist radar, which means you can walk through this extraordinary seasonal bloom with mostly local visitors. Free to walk through the orchards. Guided tours from Murcia City run around $35, 32 euro. Insider tip. Peak blossom is a typical the last week of February and first week of March, but it varies year to year depending on winter temperatures. Check local tourism sites in January for that year's predicted peak window before booking travel. 53. Cartagena and Playa de Calblanque. Cartagena is the Spanish city most tourists fly straight over on their way to Costa Blanca resorts, a genuine mistake. Founded by Carthaginian general Hasdrubal in 227 BC, it was one of the Mediterranean's most important ports for millennia, and the layers of history are extraordinary. A Roman theater discovered under a department store in the 1980s, now fully excavated and opened, a Moorish castle, and a turn-of-the-century modernista old town. The Playa de Calblanque nearby are some of the most unspoiled beaches on the Mediterranean. No development, no sunbeds, no umbrellas, just wild dunes and crystalline water in a protected regional park. Roman theaters around $6, €5.5 euro. Calblanque beaches are free. 54. Enchanted City of Bolnuevo. The Ciudad Encantada de Bolnuevo near Mazarón in Murcia is what happens when millions of years of wind and water erosion work on soft sandstone. A landscape of mushroom-shaped formations, natural arches, caves, and balanced rocks that looks entirely alien against the blue Mediterranean behind it. It's completely free to visit and barely on anyone's itinerary. You'll often have sections of it almost to yourself. The contrast between the wild sandstone formations and the sea just beyond them makes for some of the most surreal photography in Spain. Navarre. 55. Camino de Santiago. Walking the Camino de Santiago is one of the most transformative experiences available to human beings with functional legs. The transitional French route, starting at Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port and walking 790 kilometers to Santiago de Compostela, takes about 33 days. Shorter versions starting at Burgos, 2 weeks, or Sarria, minimum for the official Compostela certificate, about a week, are also popular. The appeal is hard to explain briefly. It's the combination of daily physical effort, simple rhythms of walk, eat, sleep, the landscapes of northern Spain, and the community of walkers from every country going the same direction for completely different reasons. Budget roughly $35 to $60, 32 to 52 euro per day for accommodation and meals. Insider tip. Start in late April or May for the best balance of weather, scenery, and a manageable flow of pilgrims. The August crush makes albergues impossible without advanced booking, and the atmosphere is less reflective. Spring through Navarre, with the Pyrenees behind you and Rioja ahead, is one of the great walking experiences in Europe. 56. Bardenas Reales. Bardenas Reales is the Spain that most visitors don't know exists. A vast, semi-arid wilderness on the Navarre-Aragon border that looks more like the American Southwest than anything you'd expect in Western Europe. Mushroom-shaped clay formations, barren plateaus, eroded canyons, and a landscape so otherworldly it's a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. Game of Thrones filmed the Red Waste here. HBO's Westworld used it for its frontier landscape. Driving the marked circuit or joining a guided jeep tour reveals a Spain completely different from the one most people imagine. Tours from Tudela run around $35 to $50, 32 to 45 euro. Insider tip. Late afternoon is when Bardenas is at its most extraordinary. The low sun turns the clay formations deep orange. The shadows in the canyons become dramatic, and the whole landscape glows in a way that photographers almost can't capture. Plan your visit to arrive around 3 p.m. 57. Royal Palace of Olite. The Royal Palace of Olite was once one of the most luxurious and fantastical castles in medieval Europe. A fortress of towers, turrets, hanging gardens, and exotic animals kept in the royal menagerie, built by the kings of Navarre in the 15th century. Much was destroyed during the Peninsular War in 1813, but the remaining towers and halls have been carefully restored, and the silhouette of the palace rising above the small town of Olite is genuinely remarkable. A Parador hotel occupies part of the original structure. Staying the night here is one of the great castle hotel experiences in Spain. Entry is around $4, 3.5 euro. Valencia region. 58. Laguna Salada de Torrevieja. Spain has its own pink lake, and almost nobody outside the country knows about it. The Laguna Salada de Torrevieja turns vivid shades of pink and red depending on the salinity, the season, and the light caused by the same algae and brine shrimp that color the Bolivian salt flats. It's one of the saltiest bodies of water in the world, supports a large flamingo colony, and sits in a regional park that's completely free to visit and walk around. The pink color is the most intense from July to October. Photography here is extraordinary. Insider tip. Go in the morning when the light is low and the flamingos are feeding in the shallows. The combination of pink water, pink birds, and warm morning light against the blue sky is genuinely surreal, and one of the best photography opportunities in Spain. 59. City of Arts and Sciences, Valencia. Valencia's City of Arts and Sciences is one of the most architecturally extraordinary public spaces in Europe. Santiago Calatrava's complex of buildings in the former Turia riverbed, a gleaming white science museum, an IMAX theater that looks like a closed eye, Europe's largest aquarium with its underwater shark tunnels and beluga whales, and an opera house that resembles a Viking helmet, transforms what was a flood channel into a futuristic landscape that looks like a concept drawing made real. Even just walking through at dusk when the buildings light up is worth it. Triple pass for Oceanographique, Science Museum, and Hemispherique costs around $53, 47 euro. 60. Peníscola, Guadalest, Pavea, and Alta. The Valencia coast and interior hide 4 experiences too good to leave off any bucket list. Peníscola, the city in the sea, is a fortified medieval city on a rocky promontory connected to the mainland by beaches on both sides. Its Knights Templar castle commanding the coastline in every direction, from Game of Thrones Marine. Guadalest is a tiny village inside a medieval castle perched on an impossible rocky outcrop above a turquoise reservoir with views that genuinely defy description. Havea's La Granadella Cove has some of the clearest Mediterranean water in Spain, and Altia, the Santorini of Spain, is a whitewashed hilltop village above the Costa Blanca that the high-rise resort developments somehow missed entirely. Free to wander all 4, castle entries run $3 to $4, 2.5 to 3.5 euro. Insider tip. Combine Guadalest and Altia in a single day. They're 20 minutes apart by car and together make one of the best inland and coastal day trips on the Costa Blanca. Completely different in character from anything the resort strip offers. 60 experiences, 14 regions, one country that has more packed into its borders than most people will discover in a lifetime of traveling it. The thing about Spain is that it rewards the curious, the person who always turns off the motorway into a small town, who stays an extra night somewhere unexpected, who orders the thing they can't pronounce. That's where the real list lives. If this helped you build yours, hit like and subscribe. Drop a comment with the one experience that jumped off the screen and demanded a place in your itinerary. I'll see you in the next one.